Welcome to my humble abode, darlings. Come in out of the rain and get comfortable. I have a story to tell you, and I hope you enjoy. If you do, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Uncivilized. Captain Nemo and the Legend of Dwarka by Anna Konidala. Copyright 2026. Illustrations by Tua Tolisami. This story is based on the works of Jules Verne. A special thank you to Anna Konidala. If the world is my oyster, then you are my pearl, which is an ironic metaphor considering your deadly shellfish allergy. Amy Hewlett, thank you for loving me more than you love Oxford commas. Mr. Chris Honeyset, whose kind constructive criticism and advice have improved my writing astronomically. Mary Leanne Porcelot, whose artwork and Libertatium project has touched me and inspired me. Cody DeCiffer, 5 letters back. Prologue. The year 1871 continued an era of exploration as well as exploitation. Men valued the pursuit of knowledge more than they valued humanity, and the age of dark enlightenment cast a dark shadow of tyranny on the backs of the oppressed. In such an age, it took visionary individuals with intellectual genius and a certain amount of ruthlessness to distinguish themselves and defend that which they held sacred. Not the least remarkable of these individuals was Prince Dakar, Bundelkhand Ka Rajkumar, who was integral to India's 1857 uprising against the British. Later, and more famously, he would come to be known as Captain Nemo, inventor of the Nautilus, a submarine built in secret which he used to attack the British Navy. The Nautilus surpassed all other technology in the nascent age of electricity, its powerful electrical engines driving it with enough force to cleave warships with its serrated prow. In 1867, the renowned French naturalist Professor Pierre Aronnax stumbled across the Nautilus when his ship collided with the vessel, causing him to fall overboard. Captain Nemo rescued the professor, but held him captive for 10 months to prevent his existence from being made known to the outside world. When Professor Aronnax finally escaped, he documented this adventure in a memoir titled 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. This publication resulted in a worldwide search for the renegade captain and his Nautilus, seeking to end his reign of terror. A few years later, a new report from America came to light, titled The Mysterious Island. It was written by a Union soldier named Cyrus Harding Smith. He claimed to have been at the captain's deathbed and had seen to it that the Nautilus was destroyed. As the Nautilus and its inhabitants vanished, it was quickly accepted as a true account, especially since the tragic history of Prince Dakar could be confirmed by numerous reliable sources in India. So it was that the world believed Captain Nemo was dead. Chapter 1. Today's the day, little one. Dr. Grace Evans cooed as she carefully lifted the premature infant from the warm cradle. The tiny baby yawned and stretched. For several years now, a sign on an unassuming brick building situated in an obscure Indian village simply read, Charity Clinic. The townlet was a short walk from the coastline of Gujarat, where the brisk wind whipped off the Arabian Sea complemented the land's warmth and humidity. The baby's mother was in tears as Grace placed him in her arms. How can I ever thank you, Dr. Evans? You can thank me by taking good care of this Piara Muna, and make sure he grows up to be a big and strong man. Grace laughed as the baby reached out one last time and grabbed her long blonde braid, as if to say farewell. Her spectacles slipped down her high-bridged nose as she disentangled herself from the infant's tight grip. As soon as Grace had discharged the baby and new mother, she sighed heavily as a familiar pain in her left shoulder began to set in. She wandered into the kitchen to grind ashwagandha, which she poured into a kettle on the stove. As she waited for the kettle to boil, she watched a gecko scurry out from behind a cabinet, sticking fast to the tiled wall. "Look at you, not a care in the world," she said to the lizard with a tired smile. "Just eat mosquitoes all day, then go hide in a cozy little hole somewhere. I envy you." It tilted its round little head to look at her, then scurried across the wall towards an open arched window. The little creature paused for a moment to enjoy the sun-warmed still, before scampering over the ledge into the outside world. "And you're free to come and go as you please." "Who are you talking to, Grace?" Dr. Evans jumped and turned to see her friend, Prina, standing in the doorway. "Oh, well, I was, talking to a lizard." "Better than talking to yourself, I suppose," Prina remarked, with a cheeky smile as she entered the room, "although you do that quite a lot, too." Prina, a native of Gujarat, had befriended Dr. Evans when the Englishwoman first arrived in India as a young lady. Over the years, Grace had imparted her medical training to Prina until their association had shifted from being mentor and mentee to running the clinic as peers. Prina sniffed the air and lifted the kettle lid to inspect the contents. "What on earth is this? It doesn't smell like chai." "It's herbal chai," Grace explained. "I'm supplementing my European training with Ayurvedic medical practices. The consumption of ashwagandha seems to routinely reduce melancholy in my patients. I thought it might lift my spirits as well, but so far I've found that it does little more for me than to increase trips to the privy." "Chi, you spend more time making these concoctions than you do making proper chai and normal food. You'll never find a husband at this rate." Grace chuckled and began rifling through a cabinet looking for a low-grade painkiller. "I just turned 30, Prina. I'm a confirmed old spinster. Besides, I don't think I could stomach the thought of being tied down by a man." She became distracted upon finding a drawer containing a few well-worn travel documents. She picked up her passport and flipped through it. "Prina, what would you think if I sought funding for an expedition to Socotra? My mother and father always wanted to go there. I've read that it's barely touched gold mine of natural medicines. There are trees there with blood-red resin which can—" "Grace?" "Yes?" "The water. It's boiling over." The doctor gasped and dropped the passport back into the drawer. She dashed over to the kettle and pulled it off the stove, muttering under her breath about her absent-mindedness. "You have still got that wanderlust you spoke of?" Prina asked. Grace sighed and nodded. "It's a difficult thing to explain, but when one has grown up straddling cultures their whole life, it's hard to feel settled. Is it because you're the only Britisher around here?" The doctor shook her head. No, I don't mind that in the least. It's a very difficult thing to explain." Grace poured the tea into a mug and stirred it absently. "It is as though the urge to travel, anywhere at all, becomes an insatiable urge. It's as if—" Their conversation was cut short by a commotion. A wide-eyed nurse ran into the kitchen and exclaimed, "Doctor, there's a woman with a broken arm. A wagon accident." Grace and Prina rushed to tend the injured woman, who the nurse was helping into a hospital bed. Prina inspected her arm. "It's a compound fracture." The woman shook her head and wept. "Please, just kill me now." "Hush now, don't say such things," Grace responded calmly. as she dripped ether into an inhaler. The woman continued to cry. My husband is a farmer, but he had to give his land to grow poppies. If you amputate my arm, I will not be able to work and will starve. No, it won't come to that. Your arm will be just fine, madam, Prina assured. What is your occupation? I'm a tailor. Well, I have a new sari blouse which needs taken in. Once you've recovered, I'll be sure to bring it to you. Prina smiled at the woman, who tried to smile back through her tears. Grace administered the inhalation anesthetic. Once the woman was unconscious, Prina began the surgery with Grace and a nurse assisting. As Grace applied carbolic spray to the incision, the nurse asked, Are you quite sure about this? Grace nodded, remaining focused on her work. Lord Lister in Germany claims to have brought down death by sepsis from 40% to 3% using these sterilization methods. If there's a chance to save the hands of honest workers, surely we must try it. There are rumors that British officers used to break the thumbs of weavers to prevent them from plying their trade, Prina observed as she realigned the broken bones. Yet here we are, a Britisher and an Indian, ensuring this woman will have full use of her hands. Dr. Evans glanced up briefly. I guess that makes us renegades, eh? It's the doctors and the teachers and the missionaries who make the most effective insurgents, I always say. Her focus returned to what Prina was doing. At one time, the Indian lady would pale at the sight of an open wound. Now she performed the open reduction as expertly as any medical professional. Grace's heart warmed with pride. Even a sense of sadness welled up inside her. After the procedure, Prina and Grace walked out into the veranda while their patients rested. You know what I've realized, Prina? Grace sat down onto a woven seat chair and poured 2 cups of tea. You don't really need my support. I don't know why I'm here. You could handle this clinic yourself. Prina frowned and sat down across from her. Now, Grace, why do you say such nonsense? If you don't mind me saying so, lately you seem restless. I don't know. I've been feeling lately as though I could be doing more. Why don't I seek funding for an expedition to Socotra? Because even if you found some miracle medicine in Socotra, you would grow restless again, Grace. Then you would want to travel someplace else and accomplish something greater. Dr. Evans sighed and took a sip of her tea. She knew deep down that Prina was right, but Grace couldn't seem to douse her yearning to set foot on new shores. But was it yearning, or was it rather a void she needed to fill? So long as she was helping people, she decided not to think about it too much. Prina nodded her head in the direction of 3 desperate-looking individuals hurrying up the path towards them. Leave it, my friend. Your skills are needed here and now. There was an Indian man who looked to be in his late 20s or early 30s. Beside him was a large, burly white man, a decade or 2 older, carrying a young woman in his beefy arms. She appeared to be Indian as well and wore a tunic made of strange material, embroidered with the letter N over her heart. She could not have been much older than 20. Her hair was cropped short and clung to her sweaty forehead in damp clusters. Her skin was flushed, her face speckled with a red rash. Good heavens! Grace ushered them through the clinic's entrance. Please come in. She fell ill with fever several days ago, but her illness continues to worsen, and now she has this rash, the Indian man explained in clipped English, while the other man laid the girl on the bed. Grace felt the girl's quickened pulse and asked her to open her mouth for examination of her tongue and throat. The doctor felt carefully along the girl's jawline and neck. Is that sore? She asked the girl, who nodded, eyes dull and confused with fever. How have you treated it? she asked the Indian man. "We've administered quinine. We're at a loss now. What are your names?" "I am Arjuna Dakar." Grace looked expectantly at the white man. "And you, sir?" "He doesn't speak English," Arjuna said briskly. "And for our friend, you don't need to know her name to treat her, do you?" "Oh, very well." Grace turned to her co-worker and said, "Preena, we have a scarlet fever patient. Bring the fever reducer and bioticals, and let's get her into a room where she can be quarantined. I would ask you gentlemen to please wait outside, as I will need to disrobe the young lady in order to further assess her and administer treatment." She was relieved when the men left the premises without argument, while Preena hurried to the clinic's chemistry laboratory. Grace turned her attention to the young woman, searching for anything indicative of her identity. As she carefully undressed the girl, she noted that her tunic was made of a peculiar soft material, which was breathable, yet as firm as leather. Grace looked at the embroidered letter N and wondered what it stood for. "Ma, please hold my hand," the girl mumbled deliriously in Bundeli. The language was similar enough to Hindi that Grace could understand the feverish young woman's word. "Are you from Bundelkhand, miss?" "I have no country. I need to go back," the delirious girl whimpered. "I must adjust the hydroplanes. Uncle, please don't be angry." "What is your name?" Grace asked gently. "Tasha. You live with your uncle, do you, Miss Tasha? Tell me, what is his name?" "Dakar." Preena brought a bottle of medicine and spooned some of it into the girl's mouth. "Dakar? That's unusual," Grace thought. "I've heard of only one other man by that name." The following day, Grace found Tasha lucid but exhausted from her illness. The girl smiled drowsily as Grace placed a thermometer under her tongue. "It looks like your fever has broken, Miss Tasha." The girl nodded. "I feel much better, doctor. I cannot thank you enough. Can't I go stay with my friends?" "Heavens, no! You're nowhere near recovered, and we wouldn't want you to relapse." Grace removed the stethoscope, draped around her neck, and listened to her patient's heart. "Tasha, who are the men who brought you here? Are they relation to you?" Dr. Evans heard Tasha's heartbeat quicken. The girl's smile faded. "They're friends, as I said." Grace removed the stethoscope and patted her hand reassuringly. The thought had occurred to Grace that this young woman might be in desperate straits, and that the mysterious men might be trafficking her. It would not be the first time she had encountered such a situation. Several of the nurses she had trained, including Preena herself, had fled egregious circumstances. "You're safe here, you know, Miss Tasha. If you are in any trouble, I hope you will tell me. You can stay with me as long as you need, and I can assure you that you'll be well protected." Oh, doctor, it's nothing like that," the girl said quickly. "I'm in no danger, I promise." Dr. Evans diligently tended to the young woman, and after a few days, Tasha had regained most of her strength. Arjuna and his companion came every day to check on Tasha, but refused to converse with anyone at the clinic. The doctor smiled with satisfaction when she found Tasha sitting up in bed. "You look quite well, Miss Tasha. I'm afraid, however, that I must insist you stay here for another week to ensure the scarlet fever has been thoroughly purged from your body." "I don't mind that at all, doctor." Tasha cheerfully accepted a glass of mango juice from one of the nurses. "I've been enjoying the company of so many intelligent women like yourself. I wish I had friends like you. Don't you have any female friends where you're from? Where do you live, Miss Tasha?" The girl shrugged. "I'm a nomad, I suppose." Grace pulled up a chair and sat across from Tasha, studying her face for any sign of deception. "Miss Tasha, have you ever read the memoir of Professor Pierre Anorax?" I was astonished to find Nemo was the alias of Prince Dakar, the famous rebel leader who sought to liberate his country from the British Raj. Tasia laughed uncomfortably. Oh, yes, and according to Cyrus Harding Smith's memoir, Captain Nemo died and his Nautilus acted as his coffin. Tasia, in your delirious rambling, you mentioned someone named Dakar. That is not a common name. Where did you come from, truly? Tasia smiled uneasily and fidgeted. I'm tired, Doctor. Please let me sleep now. Grace hesitated for a moment, then nodded and went to attend her other patients. The tailor was to be discharged that day, with her arm continued to heal, with no sign of infection. Dr. Evans smiled wistfully as she watched the woman walk down the road, surrounded by her grateful family. A memory of Grace's early years in Kapoor came to her mind, and a precious recollection of her own parents. She could still see her father sitting at the breakfast table reading the newspaper. "Oh, how I would like to meet this Prince Dakar," Mr. Evans had remarked, tapping an article emphatically. "The papers can put whatever slant they want on this liberation efforts, but I say he's absolutely in the right." "Hush now, Arthur." Mrs. Evans had come bustling over to the table and set the tea tray in front of Grace. "I'm sure you're right, of course, but think what would happen to us if the others heard you say such things." "The others, pah!" Grace's father had folded the newspaper and poured himself a cup of tea. "When have we ever given a damn for what others thought, Margie?" "Arthur, mind your language in front of Gracie." "Gracie's not a child anymore, Margie." Mr. Evans had winked at his daughter and taken a sip of tea. "You know what's right and wrong very well, Gracie. Dakar Rajkumar is a free thinker, and so are you. You're going to do so much good in this world." As Grace walked to the laboratory, she smiled at the memory of her parents and thought about their discussions regarding the Rajkumar and his insurrectionists. The room Grace and her companions used as a laboratory was small and sparsely furnished. It contained a few desks, tables, and rudimentary chemistry tools. Stopping at a countertop, she removed a magnifying glass from a drawer and inspected a petri dish, which contained a dying strand of bacteria. "Well, that's encouraging. It looks like these antibiotics are definitely effective," she said to herself. As Grace sat down the glass, her eyes fell upon a hinged picture frame displayed on her desk. She picked it up and gazed at the two portraits it contained, a man and a woman who resembled her in equal measure. "Mama, Papa, why am I so unhappy?" She looked out the window towards the Arabian Sea, where the relentless waves rolled on towards infinity. "I suppose you'd be proud of me, but I'm not satisfied. Lord Lister's been able to share his medical discoveries with the whole world. I haven't had that opportunity." She looked at the portraits again and smiled. "You know, we had assumed Dakar Rajkumar died in the rebellion, but his death was fabricated. He was discovered alive by Professor Anorax going by the alias of Captain Nemo. Could it be possible he fabricated his death a second time? In light of the attention his submarine vessel garnered, I remember, Papa, how much you wanted to meet him." She sighed. "Imagine if I could find him. I'd wager he would understand my predicament. I would spend my life exploring uncharted territories like him, if I could, never settling down, meeting people to whom I could be of service. I want to be surrounded by people who could help me make scientific discoveries." A seed of an idea sprouted in her mind. The more she thought about it, the more her resolve solidified. Grace picked up the frame and planted a kiss on each portrait. The doctor strode purposefully to her room at the far end of the compound. She gently placed the frame in a small suitcase and laid her most essential belongings on top of it. Once she had finished packing, she took inventory of the laboratory's supplies and wrote notes on the state of experiments currently underway. The next morning, Grace called Prina and the nurses together and announced, "I'm not going to beat around the bush, my dear friends. You don't need me anymore." The nurses looked at each other, and some started to object. "No, please, don't protest." I've been thinking about this for quite some time now. The time has come for me to hand the keys to the clinic over to Prina and move on to other things. The nurses were not entirely shocked by the announcement, yet not an eye in the room was dry as Grace kissed her friends and bid them farewell. The doctor's heart also ached, but she was used to saying goodbye in a variety of languages. Prina put her hand on Grace's shoulder and asked, "Where will you go? Back to Europe?" The doctor hesitated. "I'm going to obtain funding for a scientific expedition to further research we've begun." Prina took Grace's hands and said, "I want you to know that I am forever indebted to you, Grace. Thank you for giving me a chance to begin my life anew." "Dear Prina, I did nothing. You made the most of your circumstances. I'm simply blessed to have been part of those circumstances." The two women embraced tearfully. The following evening, Grace said her final goodbyes. Prina returned home to tend to her family, and Grace went to prepare Tasia to be discharged. Her final act at the clinic. Grace saw the girl off as she was collected by Arjuna and the other strange man. Then, with her small suitcase in hand, Grace followed the three mysterious strangers at a distance. She wore a simple cotton sari and pulled the palu over her head. As the last of the evening light faded into darkness, they found their way to the shoreline, then kept walking across the beach until they reached a cluster of boulders. From among the rocks, they dislodged a metal skiff. The men dragged the skiff to the water's edge, and while Tasia and her companion climbed into the skiff, Arjuna raised a hand in farewell, preparing to return to his people. It was then that Grace made herself known. "Wait!" They froze. Arjuna turned and cocked a pistol, training it on the doctor. "No, don't, Arjuna." Tasia grabbed his arm. "She saved my life. She's a good person." Grace raised her hands above her head. "I've come alone. There's no one else here, I promise. And I know that you are the crewmen from the Nautilus. Listen to me. I have something to ask of you." So quoth this raven. I am so excited to read this to you, my darlings. I hope you enjoyed this first chapter. And let me know. Please comment, please like it. Any kind of interaction with my channel will help get this out there so more people can hear this. Anyway, I hope you all are having an absolutely lovely week. Bye-bye. What? You're still here after the whole story? I really appreciate that, darlings. Please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't. And I always love to hear from you. Have a glorious day, my darlings.